Good afternoon. My name is Jetzko van de Kamp. I am a recognized authority on the Space Buckets toy form, which is when we take all of the astronauts and put them into a big bucket. And so we call it the Space Buckets. It has nothing to do with growing marijuana. And here we have some interesting items related to the Space Buckets that has come from shopping with the bay, as we call it here in this. So now, I'm expecting a phone call from a young lady, so I'm going to make this fairly quick. This was a lot sold by a non-toy specialist. I took one look at it in a thumbnail, little teensy thumbnail on a phone, and was like, what is that? And we've got your typical space buckets, space shuttle, typical space bucket, space station. There's the exploding fuel tank with one of the solid rocket boosters. There's a nice Chinese-based rocket with American symbols on it. And we've got the typical space bucket Lunar Rover. There's one of the, it's one of the earlier radar dishes for the rover. Here's another piece of the space station. And this is what caught my eye, because it's wrong. Grumman design, Lunar Module ascent stage, stuck to what appears to be the base stage from the Space Bucket Lunar Module. And let's just cut right to the chase. Here's some previous examples of the form that have been in my collection. And as a result of exhaustive research done just at about this time of the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, I was able to determine that the Space Bucket Hing Fat Space Astronaut Lunar Lander is based on an early concept design by Convair for the Lunar Excursion Module, with some significant changes. There should be some boom arms here, and the antenna is placed in the wrong spot. But I've been in love with this form since the age of 5, since I had my Space Bucket kit as a set as a kid. Here are some modern examples of it by Darren Industry, Billy V Toys. Shame on them for not responding to my emails. And the Big Bucket of Astronauts by SCS Direct. The deal with these sets is that the plastic toys inside are all manufactured by Hing Fat Toys on mainland China, and then sold wholesale to companies like Darren and SCS that package for retail sale under their own banner names. Now, I had one of these sets as a kid. That would have been 1971, 1972. Hing Fat, as we know it now, didn't exist until 1980. So who made it? And my goal, and the reason for the obsession, is having a set that represents what I had in 1972. All of them have a Lunar Rover. All of them have the Lunar Lander. All of them have groupings of astronaut figures. And none of them has ever had an ascent stage on its lunar module that resembles the Grumman design. I've often wondered why. That the Grumman Lunar Module its design is in the public domain. It has to be. So there's no licensing reason to not have used it, other than I mean I don't know. I don't know what the story is. I don't know when the Space Bucket Hing Fat Space Astronaut form first appeared. I know I destroyed one of these when I was a kid. I know that my Lunar Rover survived well into middle school. I was wheeling that around for years, and they were pressed in white. I don't recall what astronauts were with them. I'm not sure if they were the typical Hing Fat type astronauts. And we've got a few examples to look at sometime when there's more of a show to devote to it. But this thing here, with the Grumman ascent stage on it, is anomalistic. I've never seen it before. I've been pursuing this for about a year now. It was about a year ago that I first landed the used set that this rover and this lander came with. I want to say that with the earlier lunar lander designs, there was no design on the upper plate of the descent stage. Later versions, this lander is from the Darren Industries smaller bucket, and the later one by both SCS and Billy V also have the stickerage on the top plate of their descent stage, and so does this, or a variation of it. The lunar module fits into the to the base just by a pressure peg. I'm not sure what else to call it. And away you go. This one's seen some use. It was someone's toy. It was dropped. It lost one of its antenna. But I had to have it because I've never seen anything like it related to this. And it isn't... The question that I had for the vendor was, did somebody just sort of glue this from a model kit on top of a Hing Fat descent stage? And the answer is no. It's actually a fitted piece from a set. And when was Hing Fat making? When was this made? There's no indication of it. None of this stuff is dated. It might have a China on it somewhere, but there's no, there's no dating on these things. They're plastic injection mold toys. It probably costs Hing Fat 5 to 10 cents to make the plastic that is included in one of these buckets, and the company that these companies like SCS, they buy the pieces in bulk from Hing Fat and then repackage them with their own graphics and whatnot, and usually at least in the larger complete form, in some sort of a bucket form with a handle, which is why I call them. When I was a kid, that's how mine came. Mine came in a bucket with a handle on it, and we refer to it as the space bucket. Stephen, you have to put your space bucket away, and it's time for supper. I distinctly remember having one of these lunar modules, and one of the reasons why I remember it is that I was in love with the GRUMMAN Lunar Module since the age of 4. Still am. The sublime beauty of its appearance only surpassed by the perfection of its performance. Looks like a face to me, or it always did. And the fact that this vehicle was not based on the GRUMMAN Lunar Module puzzled me to no end as a kid. I wanted to look especially at the descent stages compared to each other. I'm not going to pull that descent stage off. But yeah, essentially it's the same descent stage design. Yep, there's even the rounded piece right there with just a hole formed in the middle of it into which the ascent stage is pegged. Both the descent stage and the sticker decorating it have been redesigned to accommodate this pressure peg. There's still issues with it. There's no ladder. How are they getting in and out? Convair General Dynamics Lunar Module, they were even proposing that the guys would throw a rope ladder over the side and clamber up and down on that, which, you're on the moon, you're in a spacesuit, you're not going to be climbing in a rope ladder. No wonder they didn't go with that design, even though to a degree it was the more modern approach of the two. The Grumman vehicle literally is sort of a pickup truck meant to land a crew of 2 and their equipment on the moon. and then get them, leave most of it behind, launch off with this and get them back up to rejoin with the command service module. If there was any peeve I really had about it as a kid, it was that it was obviously out of scale with the figures, and I've been trying to figure out just when the form first originated. I would have had mine by Christmas 1972. By Christmas 1973, it was all G.I. Joe in our house by the age of 6 or 7. All G.I. Joe. So the form must have originated somewheres before 1973. And what's kind of remarkable is that for the most part, it's never been changed in the nearly 50-year run of the toy pieces. None of the designs have ever really changed. I did notice that there was some minor variations on the ascent stage top here between the older example on the left and the newer example on the right. I did a blog post on it back in July, and I'll link to it that sort of demonstrates what those differences were. But this is just like wrong, and it's fantastic, and it's a revelation. I'd love to know when Hing Fat was using the Grumman ascent stage with their Convair General Dynamics based descent stage to simulate a lunar lander. I love the gray antenna, and it's just a weird anomalistic thing. I've never seen it before. I had to have it. I have to share it with people. It's like the ultimate one of the most unexpected developments in research I've sort of done into the toy line. I'd love to learn more about. I'd like to learn how it came to be. The person who sold it to me had no idea. They tried to be helpful. I know that for Grumman there should be a antenna array. Now I should have gotten out another Grumman based lunar module toy. I just wasn't thinking. I was so excited I had to open this thing up, expecting a phone call too, and we got to be done with it before the time the phone rings. I have to talk my way out of a jam. Whammon. I love them. But how did a Grumman Lunar Module ascent stage end up on Hing Fat Lunar Lander? I've got to know. And if anyone has any hint, or if anyone has seen a Space Bucket collection that has a Grumman Lunar Lander, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to see pictures of it. I'd like to know how it came to be like this. When did it come to be? Because it has the stickers, the sticker decorating the top plate. My presumption is that it's later than 1990. The used set that I got, which doesn't have the stickers on it, was said to be a mid-'80s relic. There's no ladder on any of the landing legs, but it's the Grumman Lunar Module ascent stage, at least, stuck onto a Convair descent stage, and it's just so wrong that I had to have it. And I thought you'd like a look. Trying to keep composure here, but I'm sitting down and I'm looking at the space shuttle that came with this recent arrival, and by golly, its cargo bay opens and its windows are open, and it has an old NASA style font for the United States. Let's compare it to this shuttle here from the 1980s set, and you can see how different the font is. This is a brand new shuttle from Darren Industries set, purchased absolutely brand new last summer. And again, it's a totally different font, totally different. There's even the different. Just they're different. And I've not seen it. I think I've got 6 of these Space Bucket shuttles now, and I've not seen one that opens before. Just in the same way that I've not seen a lunar lander that has the Grumman ascent stage stuck onto it. So very strange, anomalistic set that defies expectation. Here's another difference. There's the 80s shuttle. There's the new Darren Industries shuttle. You can see both of them have those two upper nozzles or whatever it is. Not on this one. So it's different. And there's no statistical information to pull off of it other than that made in China stamp right there. Doesn't even have as much playware as this one here from the 1980s set. And I've not been able to figure out how it's supposed to hitch on to the exploding fuel tank yet. I'm not a fan of the Space Shuttle program. Never was. Saw it on the back of the 747 and knew there was something wrong. That was just a publicity stunt. Trot out Captain Kirk and the Enterprise crew, and they weren't going to fly in it. Anyway, just another addendum. Strange, anomalistic, made-in-China space toys that are defying expectations, and I am one very happy camper right now. And unfortunately, there really isn't a research community to share the information with. The hardcore collectors dismiss this stuff because there's no way to date vintage from contemporary pieces. Their collectability factor is very low. The stuff still goes for $12 to $20 for a brand new set, depending upon how big they are, and that's pretty much what they went for 50 years ago. 50 years at the same... And these, of course... Hopefully goes without saying that the Space Shuttle never went anywhere near the moon, so including it in a moon exploration toy set is spurious. It also means that the shuttle couldn't have been added to the toy range any earlier than 1979, 1980. There was no Space Shuttle in my Space Bucket kit as a kid. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe this is an early version of the Space Shuttle that was then simplified further to remove the opening, get rid of the open windows, and for whatever reason add another set of nozzles there on the back. Far out and solid. If you've got one like it from a Hing Fat Space Astronaut set, I would love to know and see some pictures of it and hear about how you obtained it. What in God's name? We're still not done talking about the differences. Here are the Lunar Rovers. On the left, the used 1980s set rover. On the right, one from the SCS giant bucket of astronauts, newly purchased. In the middle, the rover that came with this set with the weird lunar module and the different shuttle, and you can see right there that the backing of them is very different. These both look like rucksacks strapped onto it that do not have the ribbing shown on this one here in the middle, or the seats on the 1980s version and the new version both have that ribbing on the seat, and this one, the one that just came out of the box, does not. It's also a little bit wider than the other two, and it's... The hubcaps of the vehicle in the middle have detailing not present on the other two, and the yoke of its control panel has less of an upward slant than the other two. Even this went through changes that just have never been described before, as far as I know. I believe that just says made in China. None of it has any dates. Let's look at the detailing of the front end. The 80s piece and the one from the giant big bucket of astronauts both have that forward narrow section that's not on this one. I'm wondering if I sort of hit pay dirt on an earlier configuration of the set. The antenna is also different. These two have a more simplified, what I would regard as a later version of the rover antenna. This one that just came out of the box has what I regard as an earlier, more complex version with that angle there, and it's sort of pegged in place where these two will slide up and down on it. How long have we been at this now? For about half an hour? Kind of a hopeless nerd I am. Yeah, those both look longer. It looks like the rover was elongated at some point. The hubcaps have changed. There's some details on the hubcaps on the one in the middle that are not present on the newer or 1980s version, and it's wider. And those two have been extended with that forward section, whatever it's supposed to be called. I'm not that up on my Lunar Rover lingo as I am with the Lunar Module. But it's different. Everything about this set so far is different, and I'm absolutely stoked. I'm going to keep looking at it, keep editing. An hour of space buckets for a space bucket Sunday. Jetsko is so happy. Jetsko van de Kamp. World-round authority on space buckets. Even he is impressed. And so Jetsko van de Kamp gets to spend the rest of the afternoon now pondering the astronauts and their equipment. Here's still no idea what this is. This came with a bunch of confirmed vintage figures. A little antenna dish. There's also a ray gun piece in here somewhere that I've never seen it described as part of the Space Bucket Hing Fat Astronaut set collections. I've dug up some colored figures. It's fascinating. 50 years of the same toy line. It's longer than the Star Wars toys have been around, you know? Very few changes to it. They still apparently sell very well. They should go for about $12.99. Perfect thing to send with the kids to Grandma's house for the weekend. Or you get the space bucket for the boy, and you get the horse farm for the young lady, and they can leave them behind at Grandma's house, and maybe that's how I came into this one. Very excited. I don't know. I'm going to have to sit down and take my blood pressure or something like that. Calm down and figure out just how the heck this came to be. How did that come to be? How did a Grumman ascent stage end up on the Convair General Dynamics LEM descent stage in a Hing Fat Space Bucket astronaut set? They had to have made it. That's Hing Fat. Made in China? Damn. Anyway, we will get back to enjoying the space buckets and thinking of how to make artwork from the space buckets and then put them all back into their giant bucket.